In Seattle yesterday, a protest downtown turned violent when police say a separate group of rioters came in and began smashing windows and injuring police officers, and then tried to light the East Police Precinct on fire. The same precinct abandoned by officers during the protest autonomous zone occupation that was set up a while ago. At least 2 people were arrested yesterday. A dozen police officers were hurt. Joining me now, White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany. Kayleigh, great to have you on the program this morning.
Good to join you, Harris.
I wish that this news were taking a different, tone and texture, but it is now butting up against what the president wants to do later today. Tell me about what he's planning.
Yeah, so the president's been unmistakably clear that there is no place for violence in our streets that we're seeing in Democrat cities. I'll leave it to DOJ and DHS to announce what those details will look like, but the president has been clear. He wrote a letter to the mayor of Chicago saying it's time for you to fix the problems in your city, and he's been clear that if they don't step up and get to work, he will be there to protect the American people. It's the job of Democrat governors and mayors to protect their cities. They have the police power, but this president wants to stand up to the violence we've seen, multiple children who have lost their lives in tragic, tragic episodes in these cities.
So today at 5 p.m. Eastern, when we see this rolled out, will the president take questions?
Yeah, so I'll leave it to the president to make that decision as to when he'll take questions. But he did announce today that going forward, he'll be doing 5 p.m. briefings. So you'll hear from him tomorrow at 5 p.m. But I'll leave it to the president to decide as to what today looks like.
Okay, and one of my top questions would be just to speak to the federal agents who are on the ground in Portland, Oregon, where the leadership there, Democrat leadership, as the president has pointed out, is calling for some pullback from those federal agents. What can you tell me about who is on the ground with regard to what the White House is hoping to achieve?
Yeah, so it's a great question. Let me point out that there are 2 models here, Harris. First, you have the cooperative model, which is what we're seeing in Kansas City, where the DOJ announced Operation Legend. That was named after Legend Taliaferro, a 4-year-old boy who lost his life. He was shot while sleeping in his sleep. And the governor there was cooperative and said, I need the help of federal authorities, and we've been there. The DOJ's been there to help and assist, ATF and the FBI and other entities. That's the cooperative model. What we've seen in Portland, however, is a governor who's unwilling to admit that he's lost control of his city, a mayor who's saying, I don't need the help of federal law enforcement, while you have these rioters trying to burn down a courthouse, set a police building on fire, hurl pig's feet, attack officers, and threaten police officers and citizens alike. And in this case, you've had DHS go in to protect federal property. It's a different model, but the cooperative one is the preferable one because it's about truly putting politics aside and helping the residents, which is what this is about.
No, all right, we'll move on to this, and all of this is salient, and it is right on time, like I said, meeting with where the president says he'll be. However, it might not be as salient with the American people who are being polled on the matter. Coronavirus cases and deaths continuing to climb are atop some of the polling that we're looking today is their main concern. Right here in the United States, cases have approached 4 million, Kayleigh, with more than 140,000 people who have perished. The president had Republican leadership at the White House this morning, I know, and they were talking in a round about, the next round of stimulus. Here's what the president said on the pandemic today.
Frankly, a lot of the country is doing well. A lot of people don't say, as you understand. But we have had this big flare-up in Florida, Texas, a couple of other places. So I think what we're going to do is I'll get involved and we'll start doing briefings. It's a great way to get information out to the public as to where we are with the vaccines, with the therapeutics, and generally speaking, where we are.
And here's what the president told Chris Wallace about coronavirus on Fox News Sunday.
I said it's going to disappear. I'll say it again.
But
it's going to disappear.
Does that discredit
And I'll be right. I don't think so.
Right.
I don't think so. You know why it doesn't discredit? Because I've been right probably more than anybody else.
Kayleigh, there's one more thing I want to pull into the conversation, and it is that polling that I mentioned, Fox News polling showing that coronavirus, and I'll ask my team to pop it up, is the most important issue right now to people polled facing the country. 29% of people are saying, so nearly a third, that it leads ahead of the economy, race relations, And it speaks to, where we are. The president acknowledging that things are popping right now, but also saying that it's going to go away. What's the latest out of the White House today, knowing that it is so key with the American people?
Yeah, the one thing I would point out is that we're in a much different phase of this virus, where we do have therapeutics, where we are fast at work on a vaccine, where we are identifying cases in the communities rather than in the hospitals. We've done more than 46 million tests. So we're in a different phase of this virus when you have the case fatality rate here in the United States below the European Union, below the rest of the world. And the president wants the American people to know what the federal government is doing. It's why he'll be resuming those 5 p.m. briefings starting tomorrow to talk about remdesivir and convalescent plasmas and these innovative therapeutics only made possible by President Trump tearing down barriers. So that's the point, is to give reassurance to the American people that we're in a place where we see these cases rising as we increase testing, notably, but we're in a place where we're treating people in a better fashion because of the therapeutics developed under this president.
Now, all right, real quickly, the other thing I want to talk to you about is mask wearing, because the president now has said that, he is fine with where the science is and wearing it, but he wants people to have the freedom to make their own decision. His own U.S. Surgeon General put it a little bit more emphatically than that. Let's watch.
It relies on the individual people of America doing the right thing, and that's why I'm pleading with your viewers. I'm begging you, please understand that we are not trying to take away your freedoms when we say wear a face covering. We're not trying to take away your ability to go out when we say keep restaurant capacity under 50%. We're saying if we do these things, we can actually open and stay open.
That's a lot of passion around that one issue. Where is the president on this today? And by the way, the science now has Florida with 350,000 plus cases, only 36,000 behind California, which is obviously a bigger state. And the age breakout, Kayleigh, average in Florida, under 40.
Yeah, and we know that you're much less likely to succumb to this horrible disease when you are in that age range. But what I would say with regard to the mask, well, what I would say with regard to the mask wearing is this: the president has said he would wear a mask if he couldn't appropriately socially distance. He did that when he visited Walter Reed just a week and a half ago. But it is a freedom of choice issue. It's why it's he did at Walter Reed. There were pictures of that moment, but the CDC says recommended but not required. So Dr. Adams even said this morning, let's socialize the idea of wearing a mask rather than having some national mandate.
All right. Kayleigh McEnany, thank you very much. Good to see you today, and we'll be watching and carrying the president later.
Thank you.